The Empire's decision. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Empire's a high council glowed with cold, sterile light. Towering holographic screens displayed star charts, troop movements, and a list of species under Imperial dominion. At the center stood Empress Vorian Keth, her insectoid limbs folded neatly as she gazed upon the map of contested space. Her voice clicked through layers of translation software. The humans are spreading. Fast. Too fast. Around her, representatives of the Thalzor, Dravians, and Vorther species murmured in uneasy agreement. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing in common: fear. Humanity, once dismissed as primitive newcomers, had not only survived the Empire's pressure, but were now uniting fringe worlds, brokering peace, and, most dangerously, offering other species an alternative to imperial rule. At the heart of this growing movement was Ambassador Lyra Hale, a diplomat whose words had more power than most armies. She had negotiated peace in sectors where war had raged for decades, turning enemies into allies through sheer conviction and impossible compassion. The Galactic Empire had no answer for such influence. Diplomacy, Vorian spat the word like venom, is merely warfare by another name. She must die. A cold stillness settled over the chamber. The Empress's gaze shifted to her enforcers, for towering, black-armored beings, creatures not born but engineered. The shadows of Vorther. Their chitinous skin gleamed under the artificial light, and their glowing red eyes betrayed no emotion. Your orders are simple, Vorian continued. Eliminate the human diplomat before the Iron Summit. Make it look like an accident if you can. But if not, leave no witnesses. The assassins bowed without words. They did not speak. They only killed. Meanwhile, light years away on Iron Station, General Marcus Reeve stood on a wide observation deck, watching the stars drift by. A scar ran from his temple to his jaw, a souvenir from humanity's first contact wars. His steel-gray eyes reflected not just the void outside, but the burden of command. Any movement on the Empire's side? He asked without turning. Behind him, Colonel Nadia Voss shook her head. No official communication, but the timing is suspicious. They've pulled 3 of their border fleets back into deep space. Something's coming. Reeve exhaled through his nose. They won't come with fleets. Not yet. They'll come quietly. Assassins. Saboteurs. He tapped the data slate in his hand. Onto his Lyra Hale schedule, tightly guarded and constantly changing. Still, he knew it wasn't enough. The Empire didn't care for treaties. They feared one thing alone: strength. And Marcus had spent his entire life preparing to show them exactly that. Keep her protected at all costs, he said quietly. I want surveillance doubled. Internal scans every 6 hours. No blind spots, no shortcuts. Yes, sir. As the colonel left, Marcus allowed himself a brief moment of reflection. He remembered when humanity was laughed at on the galactic stage, called soft, divided, primitive. But over decades, they had endured. Where other species fractured under pressure, humans adapted. When worlds burned, they rebuilt. And when enemies came, they bled, then came back stronger. In her private quarters, Lyra Hale reviewed her speech for the summit, unaware of the shadow creeping toward her future. She believed in peace. She had to. If there was another way besides endless war, she would find it. Her fingers brushed over the worn chain around her neck, her father's old dog tags, a reminder of where she came from. The comm on her desk beeped. Ambassador, came Marcus's voice, steady as stone. We're increasing your security, starting immediately. Trust me, the Empire is planning something. Lyra frowned but nodded. Understood. I trust you, General. She didn't know it yet, but her trust would be tested within hours. Across the galaxy, the shadows of Vorther had already entered hyperspace. Silent, swift, and lethal. And General Marcus Reeve, the man known as the Steel Wolf, was preparing for the storm that would soon arrive. To be continued, the assassination attempt. The shadows moved without sound. 3 figures, inhuman and sleek, slithered through the ventilation shafts of Iron Station. Their chitinous bodies shimmered in and out of visibility as adaptive cloaking systems masked their forms. Eyes glowing faintly red, they advanced toward their target, Ambassador Lyra Hale. The Shadows of Vorthar were the Empire's finest assassins. They did not fail, but they had never faced humans like these. Inside the diplomatic wing, General Marcus Reeve stood before a hollow map of the station's interior. Red dots, security patrols. Blue dots, diplomatic personnel. And 3 pulsing green anomalies. There, he pointed sharply. Sectors D-17 and E-02. Unauthorized biosignatures. The security chief, Lieutenant Park, paled. How do they get past our scans? Marcus's voice dropped to a growl. Because we're not dealing with amateurs. Prepare containment teams. Lock down all auxiliary corridors. And activate Protocol Red. Protocol Red? Park blinked. That's an assassination response plan. Yes, Marcus cut him off. Do it. Now. Elsewhere, Lyra Hale stood at the window of her quarters, looking out over the endless black ocean of space. The diplomatic summit was only hours away, but her mind was elsewhere. She felt it, the wrongness in the air, as if the universe itself was holding its breath. A soft chime. The door. Who is it? She asked, turning. No answer. Her blood ran cold. Who's there? She repeated louder. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the door slid open with a hiss. 3 towering figures stepped inside, moving with unnatural grace. Their clawed hands gleamed in the dim light. No words, no hesitation. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. The first assassin lunged, and was met by a wall of gunfire. From his ceiling and the walls, hidden defense turrets exploded to life, shredding the would-be killer in a storm of kinetic rounds. Its armored body staggered, limbs flailing, before crumpling to the floor in a twitching heap. The other 2 hissed, unnatural guttural sounds. But before they could react, General Marcus Reeve himself burst through the side door, pulse rifle raised. Get down! He barked at Lyra. She dove for cover as Marcus fired. The second assassin moved fast, too fast, but Marcus was faster. A headshot cracked the air. The creature collapsed, black blood spilling across the floor. The third assassin vanished, literally disappearing from sight. Stay with her, Marcus roared to his security team, who poured into the room in force. He moved with predatory precision, scanning, hunting. Sweat dripped from his brow. These things weren't soldiers. They were death incarnate. Then movement, a shimmer near the ceiling. Without hesitation, Marcus hurled a magnetic pulse grenade upward. It detonated mid-air with a sharp crack, revealing the cloaked assassin mid-leap. The creature howled as its systems failed. Marcus didn't miss. His rifle barked twice. The alien fell, lifeless. Silence. Smoke drifted in the air. The walls were pockmarked with bullet holes. The floor slick with black blood. Lyra, breathing hard, emerged from cover. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. They were going to kill me. Marcus lowered his weapon, but kept his eyes sharp. They failed. More soldiers flooded in, weapons raised, scanning for threats. Medics rushed to Lyra's side, but she waved them off. Who were they? She whispered. Empire's elite. Marcus said flatly. Assassins. We suspected they'd try something, but not this soon. Her voice trembled. They violated every treaty. They don't care about treaties, he replied. They only understand strength. He tapped his comm. Secure the area. Sweep every inch. And give me a full report on how they got through our systems. Yes, sir, came the reply. Hours later, in the security command center, the autopsy reports were already coming in. The assassins were like nothing humanity had encountered before. Genetic hybrids, cybernetic enhancements, brainwashed to the core. Marcus stood over the hollow table, fists clenched. They weren't just sent to kill her. They were sent to send a message. Colonel Voss nodded grimly. But instead, we've captured one alive. Barely. Marcus's eyes narrowed. Good. I'll make sure the Empire gets our message instead. His voice was ice. Far above, in the blackness of space, the shattered bodies of the failed assassins were loaded into containment pods. And somewhere, deep within the Galactic Empire, the seeds of fear began to stir. The response: humanity strikes back. The cryo containers gleamed under sterile lights, each one sealed and marked with imperial sigils. Inside rested the severed heads of the shadows of Vorther, the Empire's deadliest assassins, now reduced to trophies. General Marcus Reeve stood before them, face carved from stone, his expression unreadable. "Courier ship is ready, sir," reported Colonel Voss, her voice tight. Even hardened officers shifted uneasily under the weight of what they were about to do. "Good," Marcus said quietly. "Dispatch immediately. No warnings. No explanations. Deliver these straight to the Empire's High Council chambers." Voss hesitated. Some might call this excessive. Marcus's eyes, cold steel, met hers. "They came for one of ours. They sent death cloaked in silence. We'll answer in the language they understand." He stepped forward, resting a gloved hand on the icy surface of one of the containers. "Send them back their monsters," he murmured. "Let them know humanity doesn't kneel." The courier ship, small, fast, unarmed, left Iron Station without ceremony. Its mission was not war, not diplomacy, but message. Carried within its sealed holds was a simple statement: "We are not afraid." In the Galactic Empire's capital, Vorthen Prime, the High Council gathered in their crystalline fortress. When the containers arrived, confusion rippled through the ranks. Empress Vorian Keth presided, her multifaceted eyes narrowing as the packages were opened under heavy guard. The chamber fell into stunned silence. Blackened alien skulls, lifeless eyes, the unmistakable genetic signatures of the shadows of Vorther. Vorian's clawed fingers twitched in barely concealed rage. "Impossible," she hissed. Her advisors recoiled. The shadows had never failed. Never. The accompanying message was brief. Two simple words, translated into every known galactic tongue. "Never again." Panic spread like wildfire behind closed Imperial doors. News of the failed assassination, though suppressed, leaked in whispers through back channels and intelligence networks. The impossible had happened. Humanity had not only survived the Empire's most lethal strike, but had answered with brutal precision. Back on Iron Station, Ambassador Lyra Hale sat in her quarters, her fingers trembling slightly as she read the reports. Her would-be killers were dead. The summit would proceed. Humanity still stood. The door chimed. "Enter," she called softly. Marcus stepped inside, his uniform still dusted with ash from the aftermath of the earlier assault. He paused, seeing the weariness in her eyes. "I heard," she said quietly. "The message you sent." He nodded. "Part of me wishes we hadn't done it," she admitted. "I believe in something better than this. Better than blood and vengeance." Marcus didn't argue. He didn't need to. She knew. "But the other part," she continued, her voice firmer now, "the part that remembers my father's service, the wars we've endured, the lives lost, I understand why you did it." He gave a rare, small nod. "We didn't start this. But if they want to test us, they'll find we're not soft." Her eyes met his. "You realize this may trigger escalation." "I'm counting on it," he said flatly. "Because next time, we'll be ready." A long silence stretched between them. Then Lyra whispered, "We're standing on the edge of something, Marcus. Something huge." "I know," he said. She smiled sadly. "Let's make sure humanity doesn't lose itself along the way." Across the galaxy, change was already unfolding. Several smaller species, long held under the Empire's iron grip, saw cracks in the facade of invincibility. Quiet envoys began reaching out to human diplomats, tentative but curious. The question on every world's lips was the same. Could the Empire be opposed? And if so, could the humans be the ones to lead that charge? In the silent darkness of his quarters, General Marcus Reeve stared out over the stars. His reflection ghosted in the glass. A soldier, a weapon, a guardian. He thought of ancient Earth history, of nations that rose and fell, of empires built on fear and burned by defiance. The galaxy, he knew, was no different. And now humanity, scarred, stubborn, and unbroken, was writing its chapter in that endless cycle. His fingers curled into fists. If they come again, he murmured to himself, voice barely audible, I'll send them back in pieces. The stars gave no answer. The Empire's fear. The cryo-containers, each one carrying the severed heads of the Empire's finest assassins, shook the foundation of the Galactic Empire in ways no fleet or weapon ever had. On Vorthan Prime, within the gleaming obsidian towers of Imperial Command, Empress Vorian Keth paced in cold fury. The lifeless alien skulls rested on display before her, a grotesque testament to failure. Around her, her advisors, some insectoid, some reptilian, some of species so strange they defied description, remained silent. None dared to speak. For the first time in centuries, the Empire, unquestioned rulers of half the known galaxy, tasted fear. They were nothing. Vorian spat, her voice a guttural rasp. A primitive species from the galactic rim. How did this happen? No answer came. Because they all knew. Humanity had become something far more dangerous than the Empire had ever anticipated. News of the failed assassination spread in whispers through Imperial-controlled systems. It was impossible to fully suppress. Soldiers spoke in hushed tones. Governors and client species, long resentful of Imperial tyranny, began to ask dangerous questions. If the humans could resist the Empire, who else might try? Back on Iron Station, the diplomatic summit proceeded under heavy security. For a time, there was quiet, but it was not the quiet of peace. It was the stillness before a gathering storm. Ambassador Lyra Hale stood at the summit podium, speaking not just to her fellow humans, but to representatives of half a dozen minor species who had braved Imperial wrath to attend. We were told we were small, Lyra said, her voice steady but impassioned. We were told the Empire could not be challenged, that the galaxy would always belong to the strong and the ruthless. She paused, her gaze sweeping the room. But strength is not measured by how many you conquer, she continued softly. It is measured by what you stand for, by how fiercely you defend what you love. And humanity will not be ruled by fear. Thunderous applause erupted. Even some of the non-human representatives joined in, cautiously, but with growing courage. In the shadows of the command deck, General Marcus Reeve watched the broadcast silently. His arms were folded, expression grim as ever. But there was something in his eyes, a flicker of respect. Hope, perhaps, though he'd never admit it. Colonel Nadia Voss stepped beside him. They're listening, she said quietly. The others. The ones who've lived under the Empire's heel for generations. Marcus didn't look away from the screen. We'll need more than speeches when the Empire strikes back. They will, Voss agreed. Good, Marcus said, voice low. Let them come. 2 days later, the Empire's formal response arrived. Not in ships, but in words. A heavily encrypted diplomatic transmission beamed directly to Iron Station. The holographic projection of Empress Vorian appeared in the war room. Her multifaceted eyes glimmered with cold hate. Humanity, she hissed, has made its position clear. You refuse compliance. You reject peace. The next time we speak, it will be over the ruins of your worlds. The message cut off. No demands. No negotiations. Just war. Marcus exhaled slowly, his hands resting on the edge of the war table. The officers in the room were tense, but determined. The decision was no longer in their hands. We knew this was coming, he said quietly. Colonel Voss spoke what everyone was thinking. We're not ready for a full-scale war against the Empire. No one ever is, Marcus replied. But we'll fight, and we won't fight alone. His eyes flickered to the list of recent diplomatic overtures, minor species reaching out, hesitant but intrigued. The seeds of a future alliance were already growing. In her quarters, Lyra Hale sat alone, gazing out over the stars. She knew what was coming. The Empire would not forgive, would not forget. But for the first time, she felt something stronger than fear. Pride. Hope. Far across the galaxy, fleets were already moving. War engines rumbled to life. Battle lines were being drawn. But so too was something new, a spark that could not be extinguished. A rebellion that began not with weapons, but with defiance. with one simple, unspoken truth. Humanity bows to no one, and as long as they stood together, the galaxy would never be the same.